Hello and welcome. Thank you for watching this video, unless you're in our English class, in which case you had no choice. Either way, you're here, so take a seat if you're not sitting already, and we're gonna get a lot more philosophical than we should in a 10th grade English class. Our topic for today is manipulation, and when most people first hear that word, there's a certain connotation that comes with it, and chances are it's not a good one. I mean, when you think manipulation, you maybe think of some Jafar-type guy taking advantage of the young princess, but what you probably don't know is that manipulation is much more common than you realize, and is not always as bad as you might think.
Hey Emma, I thought all manipulation was bad. Are you challenging my life's beliefs?
Abby, you were in our group. Okay, fine. Let's just get everyone caught up to speed.
Wait, where are we?
Doesn't matter. Welcome to Manipulation 101. Now sit down, shut up, and listen. Anyways, if you didn't already know, manipulation is defined by the act of manipulating something or someone in a clever or unsculptuous way. There are so many ways to manipulate people that they have actual names. The first one I'll explain is gaslighting. Gaslighting is when you make a person doubt their own judgment and in turn rely on your advice on what to do. It often includes the manipulator convincing the other person about things that never actually happened and painting them as the villain when they've actually done nothing wrong. Next is guilt tripping, which is pretty self-explanatory. When you guilt trip someone, you make them feel so bad about something that they will do whatever you want to make it up to you. Now, negging is where it gets a little more complicated. This is when you make someone feel bad about themselves and convince them that if they do just this one thing, it'll all be fixed. It often usually involves a lot of backhanded compliments and attack on the other person's self-esteem. Emotional blackmail is also kind of self-explanatory. It's the use of fear, obligation, and guilt to control another person, and obviously, it can also involve guilt tripping as well. Someone could also threaten to withdraw their friendship or to be overall unpleasant to the other person until they finally give in. Finally, we have rhetorical strategies.
Wait. I use those in my essays like all the time. They aren't bad, right?
Abby, we've talked about this, okay? What type of essays do you use those for exactly? That's right, persuasive. And do you know what you do in those persuasive essays? You manipulate people. I mean, think about it. When you're writing those essays, sure, you might not really care about your topic, but you're still using all those strategies to manipulate your audience's opinion. All those strategies, ethos, pathos, logos, you know the rest, allow you to manipulate your audience's mind. And that's all the time we have for now, folks. So, now that you're all caught up, let's give some background on those terms. Take the book The Art of War by Sun Tzu. If you didn't know, it's a book written about war strategies in China in approximately 550 BC. I know, it doesn't seem like a particularly good example for manipulation, but Sun Tzu says literally within the first chapter, all warfare is based on deception. Throughout the entire book, Tzu coaches the reader on how to manipulate their enemy. In chapter 2, affectionately titled Waging War, he says, "Now in order to kill the enemy, men must be roused to anger. That there may be advantage from defeating the enemy, they must have their reward." To Tzu, there is no limit to who you can manipulate, and that includes your own people. He says to bribe the soldiers so that they have incentive to fight. He later says, "Begin by seizing something which your opponent holds dear, then he will be amenable to your will." This goes a step beyond emotional blackmail into actual blackmail. This whole book is filled with handy little tips and tricks for manipulation, and the morality on it may seem a little confusing. I mean, it's war. The morality of the situation will always be confusing. If you're doing these things for your country, for the well-being of your own people, then you'll be a hero. You'll go down in history, and kids will have to learn about you in history class. On the other hand, the opposing country will see you as a monster and a horrible villain. It all depends on the side you're looking at it from. The next example comes from the book Tiny Pretty Things by Danielle Clayton and Sona Karipotra. It takes place in a dance school where teenagers are willing to do whatever it takes to get the lead role, and yes, that includes violence. Throughout the whole book, most of the students are out to get each other, and they pretty much hate each other's guts. This is pretty clear when Bet, who is until recently the top of the pecking order, pins a compromising picture of her rival Gigi on the wall. I grab one of the glue sticks that sit on top of the TV. I wipe it all over the wall and smack it hard like I'm hitting Gigi's face 1,000 times. I step back to admire the picture among the others. I wish I could see the look on people's faces when they spot it, and the look on Gigi's face especially. Another stellar example of manipulating people's sanity is when Gigi's butterflies are murdered. One day, Gigi and her roommate return to her room to find the terrarium by the window, a gift from Gigi's dad, broken with pieces scattered all over the bed. The butterflies themselves are pinned to the wall in a perfectly straight line, dead. Clearly Clearly, somebody wanted to break Gigi's spirit, and it definitely worked. But manipulation for power isn't always as obvious in tiny pretty things. Sometimes, like in The Handmaid's Tale, it is sneaky and hides in the shadows. In The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, women are less than property in a dystopian society. There are hundreds of complex examples of government manipulation. Most of these examples are implied rather than blatantly stated, like the feeling of learned helplessness expressed by the protagonist Offred. Towards the end of the book, she speculates, "It's strange to remember how we used to think, as if everything were available to us. As if there were no contingencies, no boundaries, as if we were free to shape and reshape forever the ever-expanding parameters of our lives." Offred, along with the other handmaids, have been convinced that her purpose is to forever be a means for an end, nothing more, nothing less. It's a very extreme example of gaslighting because when the handmaids attempt to think for themselves, they're immediately cut down and marked as greedy. It caused the women to accept their place, or if they didn't, it drove them to suicide. Moving forward, the next example is Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, and the effects of the manipulation here are pretty severe as well. Brutus is manipulated by Cassius into killing a close friend, and ultimately results in Brutus being ostracized by the majority of Rome and later killed. Speaking of cold-blooded murders, let's talk about politics. Most of you should know by now that politicians will not hesitate when it comes to manipulating their voters. If you didn't, then congratulations, you've been living under the biggest rock ever. Politicians use many strategies for getting your vote. They guilt trip you into thinking that not voting for them will doom your country in future generations. Ad hominem is popular as well, known more commonly as mudslinging. Plain folks is used to appeal to the everyday folks, and of course, they use tons of loaded words and false dilemmas. For example, an anti-Trump ad from Facebook read, "Racism won, ignorance won, sexual assault won. Stop Trump, stop racism." This flat out states that Trump represents racism, sexual assaults, and ignorance, and implies that if you support him, you support all those things. But enough about political ads. Next, we will talk about normal ads, right after this.
Hi, Phil Swift here for Flex Tape, the super strong waterproof tape that can instantly patch, bond, seal, and repair. Plus, Flex Tape's powerful adhesive is so strong, it even works underwater. To show you the power of Flex Tape, I sawed this boat in half and repaired it with only Flex Tape. Not only does Flex Tape's powerful adhesive hold the boat together, but it creates a super strong watertight seal, so the inside is completely dry. Yeah, doggy!
Did you know that commercials are also manipulating you? You know all those infomercials, Flex Tape, the Snuggie, the list goes on. Those scenes that begin in black and white are notable examples of negging because they convince you, or at least they attempt to, that your life is horrible and frustrating and can only be fixed by this one product. Ads that include celebrities try a different angle at convincing you because if Samuel L. Jackson is a dependable guy and if he tells me to buy that credit card, I can trust him. He wouldn't steer me wrong, right? Now, let's get a little more personal. Earlier, I mentioned that we write persuasive essays with the purpose of manipulating your audience. You might want to argue that persuading and manipulating are two different things, but how exactly are they different? Where is the line that separates the two? The connotations, I think, are a significant factor. Manipulation has an almost evil one in comparison to persuasion, but they still have the same end goal, to change your audience ideas on whatever topic is at hand. Finally, to get even more personal, we have friend groups. Maybe you've guilt-tripped a friend into agreeing with you on a certain point, or you've used some loose version of a rhetorical strategy to get your friend to do you a favor. The point is, you've probably tried to manipulate your friends, and they've probably tried to manipulate you too. And the chances are that you might not even notice it either. So you're probably wondering, then what was the point of all that? We already know the world's a horrible place, you don't need to prove it further, we get it, manipulation's everywhere. But our point wasn't to prove that the world is a horrible place because manipulation's everywhere. It was to prove that the world is a complex place. It's not just black and white, it's a grayscale. There's no clean-cut answer to everything, including manipulation. Its connotation should never entirely be good or bad, it's entirely situational. By the way, we were technically trying to manipulate you the whole time too. Hope you enjoyed!